What was the punishment for marrying one's sister-in-law under the law of Moses? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Leviticus on Walking Through the Bible.
The glory of his cross.
If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Leviticus 20. We're going to be reading from verses 17 to 21. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Leviticus 20, beginning of verse 17. If a man takes his sister, his father's daughter or his mother's daughter, and sees her nakedness, and she sees his nakedness, is a wicked thing, and they shall be cut off in the sight of their people. He has uncovered his sister's nakedness. He shall bear his guilt. If a man lies with a woman during her sickness and uncovers her nakedness, he has exposed her flow, and she has uncovered the flow of her blood. Both of them shall be cut off from their people. You shall not uncover the nakedness of your mother's sister, nor your father's sister, for that would uncover his near kin. They shall bear their guilt. If a man lies with his uncle's wife, he has uncovered his uncle's nakedness. They shall bear their sin. They shall die childless. If a man takes his brother's wife, it is an unclean thing. He has uncovered his brother's nakedness. They shall die childless. In this chapter, we have been dealing with the various punishments that would come from breaking certain statutes of God. Most of the penalties we've seen thus far is death, though that will change in some cases with today's reading. The death penalty is seen as barbaric by today's society, and I believe such is because of the society's loss of respect for human life. Now that might seem counterintuitive, but let's remember that the death penalty is reserved for the most heinous of crimes, usually murder, though under the law of Moses, other abominations were included too. If someone kills another human being, is found guilty of that crime, but society refuses to execute that person under any circumstance, then they really don't respect the life of the one that was lost. Yes, mitigating circumstances should be considered, and if a society is misusing its powers and inequitably applying the death penalty, then they shouldn't execute. But the problem in that case is not with the death penalty, but with the unjust society itself. Our society today doesn't respect human life in the womb, nor does it respect it out of the womb, and so it's no wonder that we've seen the declines that we have. The death penalty is allowed to be used by society, by God, as long as it is used fairly, and that guilt can be proven by more than one witness. Due to the finality of the death penalty, guilt should of course be certain, but in this day and age, in many cases it can be, and so we shouldn't see the death penalty as barbaric, but necessary in order to respect human life. Coming now to verse 17, the New King James Version makes this passage confusing as to what is being talked about. It appears that three groups of people are being discussed: your sister, and then your half-sister, and your stepsister. In actuality, what is being discussed are half-sisters or stepsisters, but your full sister, I'm sure, would be included as simply assumed, as this language is also used in chapter 18. Like we said in the last lesson, when Leviticus uses the term uncovers her nakedness or sees her nakedness, we're not talking about accidentally walking in on your sister, half-sister, or stepsister while she is changing and thus seeing her naked. What we're talking about here is sexual relations with or marriage to her. What is the punishment for doing so? Being cut off from among the people. While in some contexts this could mean banishment, in this context it would mean death, as the death penalty was the punishment for relations with really close kin. Verse 18 gives us the penalty for intentionally having sexual relations with a woman during her menstrual cycle. Recall from chapter 15 that a woman during her menstrual cycle was unclean. And if a man had sexual intercourse with a woman and was defiled by her menstrual blood, he too would be unclean. We noted that because of the penalty handed down here, that what Leviticus 15 must have been talking about is a situation where the woman hadn't begun her menstrual cycle yet when sexual intercourse began, but did while sexual intercourse was occurring. In that case, neither the man nor the woman would be held guilty, though they would be unclean, for such was an accident. However, in the case where a woman is known to be unclean, both of them shall be cut off from among the people, meaning they would be put to death. Why should both of them die? Because the woman should have told the man that she was unclean, and the man should have heeded the woman's warning. Two people who knowingly rebel against the will of the Lord are deserving of death, and so, while we might consider this infraction as minor, the Lord did not. So we have to respect the word of the Lord. Verses 19 to 21 deals again with sexual relationships with close kin, however, with kin that is not as close as was dealt with in verses 11 and 12 or verse 17 of this chapter. What we're talking about is an aunt, an uncle, or a sister-in-law. One might be surprised that the punishment for these relations was not death. And as I studied this, I could not come up with a biblical answer as to why God didn't command death as the punishment. So since God didn't reveal it here, it is not important that I know. I would just have to accept the will of God. However, even though death is not the punishment, that didn't mean that the sin would go unpunished, for the punishment would be that they die childless. Now by this, I don't believe that what is being talked about is some sort of miracle performed by God where it would be impossible for the couple to have children, though such is possible with God, but rather that any child would not be counted to be part of the male's lineage. Heredity and inheritance was very important in Hebrew culture, as we'll see in the book of Numbers, and so this punishment here would serve as a deterrent against engaging in this type of sinful behavior. We'll conclude the chapter, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Leviticus 20, verses 22 to 27, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.